Hey guys, Tbull. Today we got to look at the Vanguard for you. I actually picked this ship as the second best tech tree battleship of tier 7 going into the year 2022 a few days ago. But yesterday we looked at the Bismarck and now we got the Vanguard. I'd say these are the two most improved tier 7 battleships since they were launched. Both have been heavily buffed. Now the Vanguard, usually the buffs are direct. Add the reload booster, increase the accuracy. I think they've adjusted the reload. Whatever else, they certainly shrunk the Citadel down by about 90% fairly early on into the game's development. At first, it was a Citadel monster. It was basically the Yubari of tier 7 battleships. But that ship has been directly buffed. Now, the Bismarck's gotten a couple buffs directly, including to its accuracy as well. But a lot of the Bismarck's buffs are through commander perks that influence secondary builds. So, anyways, I think both of these ships do deserve a new look, especially if you haven't played them recently. Commander-wise, you know that we had Nelson. If you don't have him, or her, I should say, then you would want to... It's an odd question, like from an economic standpoint of upgrading your commander resources. If you're going to want to level up Cunningham, anyways, the precision, i.e. the grouping, battleship commander inspiration, which is valuable, especially as a free-to-play player, then perhaps you just want to focus on Cunningham rather than fully boosting two British battleship commanders when you got plenty of other needs throughout your navy. Maybe go Cunningham first. That was my route. But just looking at the actual performance in the ships, because the heals are so strong on these British battleships, getting a couple more of them per game, well, that's great for Madden. So that's the argument for Madden. The accuracy is also pretty good to begin with on these British battleships, so not as much of a concern playing the more defensive or longevity-oriented commanders as some lines, which can get pretty wonky if you're not specking for accuracy. You'll note the flyboy on the enemy team. He has found me, and he will proceed to bomb me for the rest of the game. Okay, I think he dropped the Riga. He scouted, the western edge of the map first, looking for the destroyer. Whether or not he saw him or not, irrelevant. He bombed the Riga. Now he's going to bomb me every single time for the next 10, 15 minutes, whatever it is. Just keep an eye on him. But Vanguard, pretty good AA performance here. Now, I looked it up at 83 is the overall ranking. I don't do deep dives into AA stats, but this feels pretty good for the AA, and especially in this game, we'll get quite a few planes shot down. Playing basically the middle of the map to open now. For some bizarre reason, all these red ships are going behind these islands over there, and they're going to have long stretches of the game where they're not shooting, which is always a problem. Especially if we're stacking multiple ships over there. And then the blue team, we got 3 guys in the base, drop the anchor, the routine. And then we got a couple guys playing the east against like 1 or 2 ships over there. So, bizarre deployment, but typical for high tiers. Everything about the play at high tiers tends to be bizarre. But that allows us to play this position here. Now, if there's a heavy spread out presence, especially among the battleships, throughout the red team, if they got the west covered, the central covered, and the east, maybe I'm a little bit more hesitant to play in the middle like this, which you can see from my max firing range. I got map control over huge swatches of the map. Basically, everything that's not blocked by these close islands, I can blow up pretty easily, or at least damage heavily. And look at these battleships. They're letting these cruisers rush in. Now, the cruisers, you can't be pushing into battleships. All right, that's a no-no. He gone! That's a no-no for cruisers, but, it's unfortunate, like, if you're playing the cruiser and you're tanking for the battleships, it doesn't feel great. So, anyways, ill-advised there, but we do take care of them, and we receive no fire in return, because once again, red has no ships that can actually shoot us, despite being in the middle of the map. So, just kind of bizarre positioning all around. I don't know if the guys in our base are able to shoot anyone or not. Eventually, they'll be able to help out. These battleships on the west push forward, but thus far you can see we've been doing a fair amount of the heavy lifting, which is fine. We don't have any problem doing that. Are taking a fair amount of damage, but almost all of that has been from the plane, who once again has a little bit of a fixation for bombing the Vanguard. Okay, so Bismarck pulls forward. He's the first battleship over there. The group of 3, he's the one that's trying to escape the gravitational influence of the black hole that has sucked all those battleships right up together into one singular point in space and time. He's trying to break through there. We do miss the destroyer on the map there briefly. We were actually, I think I was looking on the map, actually pinging the other destroyer across the way. Meanwhile, we got our own destroyer targets. Let's pay attention here, Chief. Luckily for us, the team does a great job. Zaps him into oblivion as he's being spotted. And now the red team's got a bit of an issue. Now blue, we've lost one of our destroyers as well. But you can see the guys on the eastern side of the map, you know, they got one more ship to resolve over there, and then a loose destroyer. Meanwhile, we're kind of just anchoring down here. I mean, these guys, if they moved in unison and concert, they could push into me pretty easily and just outgun me. 3 battleships shooting in 1 battleship, not an issue, of course, but they're kind of gonna make a classic error, and this is one that's a major consequence at the end of the game usually, especially these games where if you're up on ships but somehow you manage to lose the game. You'll see this where these guys are kind of pushing in one at a time, right? First we got the Bismarck poked out a little bit. He's like, nah. Okay, Amagi's up next. But these guys, they can't cover each other. They're not forcing 3v1s versus me. They're allowing it to be 1v1, or, you know, depending on what support blue team might get. We might even have a numerical advantage in some of these exchanges. And that's just, you know, these guys in the back, the Iowa and the Bismarck, they might be saying, come on, don't push. It's safer back here. Let's just chill. Aren't you having a great time watching the game go by through the telescope? But if you have a teammate that's pushing forward, you can yell at the TV and say, come on, you're making a mistake. But if you don't go to help them, you are basically conceding that ship to its fate, okay? So you guys, if you see your teammates making plays, and maybe you don't agree with them, but you should try and support your team, unless they're going to draw you into like a suicidal situation as well. But again, looking at the map and playing this game, if these guys move in forward here, they could be doing something, or better yet, spread out, but get into a position where you can actually fire your guns. I think some of these ships haven't fired 6-7 minutes now. It's a little frustrating even as an opponent, just because of the passive play and ineffective play that we see a lot of times with these high tier battleships. There's nothing to be afraid of, guys. It's all just a video game. Amagi moving in forward here now. Of course, in my mind, I'm thinking, we don't want to get rammed by this guy, especially as our personal HP begins to stay higher than his. You know, if we dwindle his HP down and ours stays relatively high, then the ram becomes the better and better play the more that situation unfolds. So trying to keep an eye on that situation, but right now we are basically just trying to target his guns, limit the ability of him to deal damage to us, and we're doing that through targeting the guns and also angling the armor. Okay, now like every other tier 7 battleship, we got 32mm plating on the front, but unlike some of them, in order to get these back guns into play, we basically have to expose like chances to take critical damage. Some battleships have better firing angles, and you can more or less get those back guns safely into play. Not the Vanguard. If you're firing full salvos, you're going to be at 45 degrees or worse, and that means that these battleships at tier, legendary tier, tier 7, whatever you're at, they can punish you severely, okay? So, especially when we got the Iowa encroaching from our, you know, he's trying to get the ability to attack our right side here, and then the Amagi, we want to make sure we're pointing this nose more or less directly at these guys. But we got to do that with the understanding that, yes, our firepower is at 50% of full efficiency or whatever. Okay. So we finally cut the engine. We're finally backing up here. Yes, more torpedoes from the airplanes. Great job finding that shot as the carrier player. But we're heavily relying on our team to kill the Amagi, who was very close to ramming us. And especially once we started flooding, we will slow down very quickly. And that was a great job. Okay, so even though those guys that were sitting in the base the whole game, they didn't seem like they had that big of a impact early on. Okay, they definitely saved the day, at least from our perspective at that point in time. So we're backing up here, trying to get this damage control off here. Now we finally do. Cancel the last minute of that flooding. And since the Iowa just shot there, we got the back guns in, and then we immediately swing the rudder back. And I think the rudder was also buffed along the way here, now that I'm thinking about it. Oh, look, our own plane decides to attack the Iowa. That's kind of nice. But we get him with a nice juicy shot there in the sill. We're up to about 160,000 damage. Not too shabby. But again, we've basically slaughtered that carrier's fleet of planes. And we've basically, you can see all the metals we've been accruing. We've been tying up this push here. absorbing a lot of damage. Should we survive this battle, we'll almost certainly get Dreadnought as well. But, you know, we're just, due to our positioning, we're, number one, been in a position to deal a lot of damage. Number two, soak up damage and slow down the overload that Red had, okay? They moved basically their entire battleship fleet over here, and then whether or not we scared them into dropping anchor or that was their game plan all along, doesn't really matter. You know, on paper, we're responsible for slowing them down due to the positioning. Okay, there was really not much over here besides us to slow them down, except for fear itself. Iowa goes down. Implacable. Hey, bud. Yeah, it's me, the dude you've been bombing for the last 10 minutes. Hey, how you feeling? We got a little bit of revenge on the mind here. He's trying to slam on the brakes. He's like, yo, that Vanguard is ticked. I don't want anything to do with that. But now the blue team is moving forward. We actually got the destroyer on the base, putting the team in check. You know, you got to go reset him if you want to win the game or have a chance to win the game. Of course, they're not going to win this game at this point in time. But shots coming in from the teammates, and now he's like, oh, God, all right, we just bombed the battleship. Now where do we move this carrier? Okay. And he's going to run from the bulk of the force. You always got to evaluate the situation at hand. Who's the biggest threat to us? Which direction's the biggest threat to us? These questions are how you evaluate, okay, where do I go? Now that the guys are attacking him from the right-hand side of the screen, we're moving into position to cut off the escape. Because, of course, we do want to sink this carrier. 31 planes shot down, that's pretty good. I don't know, what do you guys... Those of you guys that play a lot of Battleship at Tier 7, I can read the numbers on my charts and say, you know, the American battleships tend to shoot, or have the best AA suites. Going down to the Japanese, I think, have the worst rated. But this, you know, this seems like a lot of planes shot down for me. But maybe it's just because the guy was bombing me the whole game that we wound up getting that much. Anyway, he is moving in range here. We're hoping that we get the shot off because it looks like he's on fire potentially. We do get the shots away there. And lo and behold, we do go ahead and get the kill to end the game there. So that's a look at the Vanguard for you guys. Hopefully you did enjoy it. And if you did, please hit the thumbs up. New to the channel, consider subscribing. We got lots of World of Warships coming all the time. Questions, comments, leave below. Love to hear from you. And we'll see you later. Peace.